Vortex 2 started traveling in earnest after the initial deployment exercise in Kansas. Even during the first couple of nights on the road, Vortex 2 worked hard getting equipment ready to go. We took only momentary stops for food and gas.
We are heading to Texas.
I hope so.
Every once in a while, various teams took breaks. In this case, we went to the Dalton game.
All right.
I have to ask you.
The Dalton gang's hideout turned out to be one of the best storm shelters we'd ever walked in.
Anyway, he never did get any more trouble. You know, he's a pretty well-respected, upstanding citizen.
Arriving at our next destination in Amarillo, Texas, got us to even more focus on getting equipment ready and operational. Various teams worked on cycle times related to deploying and actuating the pods in the field and checking and calibrating their instruments. An exciting daily briefing of severe weather several days out got Voretex 2 mobilized into moving to the next location so they could pre-position for very large storms. Not knowing our exact destination as forecasted, we were heading in the general direction of Oklahoma. At that point, local media was very interested in knowing the next destination of Voretex 2.
Associated with the position of the surface low and the ensemble members, and that black one there is the operational man. We'll have earlier initiation. This yellow line is 3,000 cape. You can't see these shear vectors here, but they're oriented perpendicular to the dry line, which is very favorable for storms initiating. This is a product from SPC, so there's a good chance we'll see a lot of precipitation. Some probabilities of extending down the dry line, the negative except the short wave pushing. Position of the dry line by looking at the dew point field. The soundings look pretty darn good. Photographs here, we have this really nice, I call this it's not really a sickle.
Tomorrow seems like slam dunk in terms of initiation somewhere in the warm sector.
The next night we spent in Perry, Oklahoma, getting prepared for what looked like a very strong operational day to follow. The morning briefing brought even more information related to the intensity of the storms that had been predicted to be very high the day before, and in this case had intensified overnight. The weather services had indicated very high probabilities of very large tornadoes rapidly moving across Oklahoma. Necessary levels of field maintenance became even more intensified in the morning, knowing that the operational day that would follow would be very long and arduous as well as dangerous. Lindsay Bennett, a senior research scientist from the UK, instructs the Discovery Channel crew on how to put together and operate a pod. Justin Walker and Herb Stein feverishly work on getting Dow 5 up and operating, knowing that very dangerous predictions for high-level tornadic activity was going to be occurring in very short number of hours from now. Alex Gibbs monitors storm development with a very careful eye, seeing the intensity of the storms building in Oklahoma. While the TIB crew prepares for their operational day, many passers-by are curious and ask questions.
Voretex, I know, man. We spend like about $2,000 worth of this stuff every year.
You hear that, Voretex? You need to be sponsoring these guys, trust me.
Yeah, and there's only about 50 windows on this thing.
Tim Marshall's crew field questions from local media. Then suddenly, Josh Warman kicks off the operational day, moving Voretex 2 into the field. The power and intensity of the supercells begin to develop in Oklahoma. Voretex 2 mobilizes and moves into operational positions. At this point, a number of powerful tornadoes are ripping across Oklahoma at high speed, going 50 to 60 miles an hour. On radar, these tornadoes are very strong and large. Various groups of Vortex 2 were sequentially deploying stick nets and other field monitoring instruments. Some operational units of Vortex 2 were in a temporary holding pattern and were monitoring the storm using Doppler. As the dry line moved eastward, huge mass of warm, moist air exploded into Oklahoma. With high levels of CAPE, powerful storms were racing across the state. Powerful supercells grew rapidly and moved northeast. Certain units of Vortex 2 were mobilized rapidly into the field. On radar, these tornadoes are very strong and large. Various groups of Vortex 2 were sequentially deploying stick nets and other field monitoring instruments. At this point, Vortex 2 teams were in the field transacting between tornadic supercells. Each probe or Doppler vehicle had to be carefully moving from one tornadic cell to another, as the entire state had a number of severe storms in between. At one point, we were informed by Vortex 2 radio that a town we were coming up on had just been hit by a tornado of significant strength. After moving through a number of cells, we managed to get into position on another storm to the south that had significant structure. Probe trucks, support vehicles, and others waited for information from the Dow as to the strength of the storms that were approaching us rapidly. A number of potentially tornadic cells were moving in our direction.
It's iffy, yeah. It's cycling, so I think we'll be able to go on either one.
As Dow radar probed these cells, we marveled at the sheer beauty of the structures that were surrounding us. For all those present on this side of the storm, it gave us a strong operational sense of our mission, especially having passed through areas of such destruction. We knew our work had significance and merit in knowing that our efforts may help at some point in reducing the lead time that small towns and people have before they encounter severe storms or tornadoes. As we were driving back, we had an absolutely beautiful sunset. Sometimes you get a sunset only like this after a severe storm has passed.
I think we're coming up to the town.
As we passed through towns with significant damage due to tornadic activity, we couldn't but help think the damage to people's lives and the property lost. It was a truly sorrowful moment for all of us as we passed through and saw such destruction that we had seen on the way out. The next day, the National Weather Service did significant damage surveys, estimating a number up to 12 tornadoes, some of significant strength in EF3 and EF4 categories, had passed through the areas that we had been through the day before. And to see it the following day brought home real understanding of the significant power of these tornadic storms. As you can see here, large power poles were split in two, and at the base of the pole, oddly enough, a huge semi had been thrown several hundred yards and wrapped around the power pole, indicating the strength of the tornado that had hit in this particular area. Small details of the tornado's strength were evidence everywhere, as pieces of large steel had been wrapped and bent, and trees had been torn to pieces, and cars had been picked up and thrown hundreds of yards by the very storms that we had been monitoring the day before. Paths of categories 1 through EF4 had been scattered throughout the land, and Numerous places had touched down, indicating not only individual tornadoes with significant damage, but also multi-vortex tornadoes. National Weather Service had a number of diverse assets that were able to track, help predict, and respond to these events. This gave us all a sobering sense of renewed purpose.